What's up guys, I am Follygon and welcome to Top Row Study, where we take a few of the trending art pieces of the day and dive a little deeper and try to learn a few things. Let's start off by taking a look at Justin Gerard's piece of the disgruntled pair over here on the far left. This is a piece that I would actually love to do a detailed sculptural study of, simply because of how cool these secondary forms are underneath the mouth. So if you are unfamiliar with what a secondary form is, you have a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary form. A primary form is the most basic shape. In this case, it would be kind of this tapered cylinder form that we have here. A secondary shape is anything on top of that. So in this case, the secondary forms for this shape would be some of these forms underneath the mouth, the chin there, kind of carving in, as well as bubbling up around, creating these really cool shapes here. Some of these forms wrapping underneath the mouth. There's kind of one large one here that peaks and wraps up. So we can start to do a slight draw over and try to understand some of these shapes a little better. A lot of cool things going on here for sure. Like I said, specifically the secondary shapes, and then the tertiary forms, if we zoom in really far and start to look at those details even more closely, that would be little things like the flex around here, which if you actually take a really close look at these, the artist has actually, and you know what, there's a higher res version. Let me grab that real quick. All right, slightly more high res, but Justin has given us a little closer look here at some of these forms. So take a look at these little flecks. There's the shadows underneath the bottom edge here, which is not by accident. So these are just kind of sitting on top of the surface. They're kind of hinting at, you know, kind of some not necessarily diseased skin, but maybe scales or something like that, something in that vein. And then lots of little speckles here and there, little bumps, things like that, that all add to that tertiary detail. But there's a lot of cool stuff going on with this character in general. Like I said, I would love to do an even more detailed study of this piece, looking at some of those secondary forms, attempting to sculpt them, as I am a sculptor, a digital sculptor, and try to replicate some of those in 3D. Justin obviously knows what he's doing with some of these forms, just understanding how these would fold and wrap around here. Of course, you know, the way that folds of skin, fatty skin or loose skin would sag and create some of these beautiful secondary shapes wrapping around here. And all of this to say it's this, you know, pear character. It's just a figment of his imagination. So in terms of reference, he might have been referencing some skin folds on some older, photos of older people. But taking a look at the character, obviously he knows his stuff. And I would love to know my stuff as much as Justin does here. By the way, speaking of, if you don't already, go give Justin a follow, whether on Artstation, which is where I grabbed this image, or on his social media. He's got a ton of awesome characters just like this one here. If you're looking for references to learn and grow even more as an artist, Justin is a great artist to follow. Moving on to number 2, which is going to be an artist that I'm sure that a lot of you know, Lois Van Barel. I believe I'm saying that correctly, or better known as Lois. I recently sculpted one of her characters one of her female characters. We're not going to be looking at humanoid characters this time. We're going to be looking at animals. As a lot of you know, I've recently gotten into 2D art, practicing my hand at drawing, at painting, fairly unsuccessful at the time being, but I'm growing and I'm learning a lot, and I'm having a lot of fun as well. That's kind of the most important thing for me when it comes to my 2D art at this time. But take a look at her line work in these characters. I'm not sure if these are ferrets or maybe weasels or something. Either way, some kind of small quadrupedal mammal. Either way, taking a look at these lines specifically, helping to represent and understand this form. You know what? Let's grab a blue color so that stands out even better. So look at how she uses line to draw a contour for this shape. It makes it very easy for us to understand what's going on here. And as a 3D artist, this kind of information is extremely helpful. As you saw over here, I was kind of using some of the lines to hint at some of the forms, and I could do a draw over of these shapes and start to better understand some of these things a little more and, start to break it down. But Lois over here has done all the hard work for us, and we can really get a good read on the cylindrical wrap for this shape. So if I was going to be sculpting or 3D modeling this character, I would have a very good understanding of the overall volume of all of these shapes. So that is just broken down in a very nice way where we can see the entire shape and just the follow through on some of these lines that she creates, creating these really just beautiful shapes. And I am simply a humble man drawing over top of her artwork. So I am not, describing this form more than she already has. I am merely calling attention to it. And I think there's a lot that all of us can learn from studying line work like this and understanding the wrap around for the contour of our shapes, describing your 3D form in 2D without even using a whole lot of shading or value. The cats over here definitely have a higher value range I'll just get my blue color over there. If we just sample from here all the way down, actually the value range doesn't change all that much. We're going from maybe somewhere in the top third to somewhere around, right around 50% in that darkest area. Some of those lines, and mainly just those edge case lines, are even slightly darker, but for the most part, right around 50%. So a little more value range for the character. Or characters, cats. Can we even call cats characters? I guess cats are characters. But taking a look again at those contour lines, over here they get even more messy, kind of hinting at more fur or texture happening here, I think, in my opinion. That's kind of the read that I get. I love the controlled messiness that Lois uses in her work. And yeah, just great pieces to sit here and look at and study, and I could draw over these and learn from these pieces quite a lot myself. One last thing I'll show you here. I promise I'll shut up about her art here in just a moment. But this last little area here. So we have a primary form. There's that idea again wrapping around here for essentially what is a sphere, a slightly squashed sphere for the back of this shape. And we can take a look at some of the contours wrapping around here as we understand that shape even more. But for the most part, we have a sphere. And then look at what she does here. The value range, again, not extreme, so we're not getting some deep shading on this describing the form. We're getting the contour, and then we're getting that breakup from primary to secondary. Very, very slight here in the silhouette. Take a look at these shapes, and I will even rotate because I am horrible at drawing lines from other angles. I just follow my one natural curve. That's all I can do. I'm my hand's not very smart. I'm not very smart. But following along the lines here, we can see 1, 2, 3 roughly, or 3 or 4 major shapes that kind of break up that silhouette and really help to hint at that character feeling more furry, more fluffy, and start to add some more character to that silhouette. There's a lot to learn here as well in terms of taking a relatively simple shape like a sphere and adding some more visual interest to it by simply breaking up the silhouette into some smaller shapes. All right, let's move on to the third and final piece from Will Gist. We will switch from blue, because I don't feel like that's going to work out too well for us, to a red pen color, and take a look at a little more of a bird's eye view on this piece. So what I want to look at here is specifically the level of detail that Will uses. And this piece was created for, I think it's a mobile game. Off the top of my head, I don't know. It's called Legends of Runeterra. So obviously this piece was created with someone like an art director where you can bounce ideas off of and they'll give feedback and help you improve your work, which is a fantastic place to be. That is, in my opinion, a really nice thing to have to help you grow as an artist. We don't always have that, so hopefully I can provide, the small little nudge in that direction. But what we want to look at here with this piece is Will's ability to control your attention. We have this kind of high-tech, futuristic police officer here, or maybe more fantasy even. And that is clearly where Will wants you to be looking. He obviously has this giant battering ram-like shape here that he's going to slam right towards us, towards the camera. He's about to do it and break down some door or barricade or something. But look at the comparison between our 3 different levels of detail here on this piece. Number 1 here in the front with our main focal point. The level of detail and information that we have going on here. I am jealous of Will's skill, but I am not jealous of the amount of work I feel like Will had to put on this. Definitely a lot. Very, very cool work though, absolutely. And then moving on to number 2, over here, this guy, kind of a secondary character. Notice his attention, his focus, looking back here, kind of where he's about to slam that. So always keeping the focal point and attention leaning towards us. But that second character here is a lot less detailed, somewhat, not just in terms of line work, in terms of actual, drawing, but mainly in terms of the value range for that character. Very similar to what we were talking about with the Loesch animals in those last 2 pieces. But here, what he's done is we no longer have these scratches and highlights and little pieces on the metal. All of that is kind of toned down. We do get some highlights, some little rim lights here on the arm, on the pants, some little areas of visual interest, obviously the glows that kind of, add some more visual interest to that. But that level of detail is reduced quite a lot. Looking at all the little armor scratches and pieces that we have going on there with the metal, the little details, the tiny little rivets and buckles and everything else. Whereas over here, we can see hints of that and not really anything else, because that is not what is needed. You could absolutely detail out both of these characters, but by leaving that one less detailed, it focuses your attention right on that main story element. Third character, or characters in this case, of course, being all the background. Apologies for the horrible 3. So we have all these characters in the background, and if you take a look at those in comparison to the rest, even less detail. We just have splotches or hints of silhouettes for these characters with little value and hue shifts. And then we have these lights that are, of course, once again, all pointing and looking at that main focal point right here in the middle, all eyes leaning in towards us and that battering ram that's gonna swing in and smash us or smash the door down, whatever he's going for there. But I think there's a lot we can learn here from Will in terms of, refining where we put our detail to lead our attention to those specific areas. Not just obviously here from Will, but from Loesch and Justin as well. Overall, 3 or 4 really beautiful pieces, or I guess even more than that technically. A relatively small amount of art that I think we can learn a lot from. That's going to be it for this episode of Top Row Study. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and comment below, and I'll see you in the next one.